Now what we're looking at here this last part is finding the equation in either of a parabola in either vertex form or x-intercept form. It'll be in one of these two forms. Now, the way we go about doing this is a lot of this is going to be plugging in and simplifying, plugging in and simplifying. Now, the two forms we have is vertex form, because it gives us the vertex, h and k. Intercept form, these two are our x-intercepts. It gives us the value of x that will make the function equal 0. It'll give us the value of x that makes the function equal 0. Now, the x-intercept form is going to come in one of two forms. It's going to be p equals some number, or q equals a number, or x1 comma 0 or x2 comma 0. Because the value of y at the x-intercept will always be 0. Now, it's already written in on y'all's sheet. I have it written in there by hand, because it's either going to be x or two intercepts. So it'll be -7 and 4. The x-intercepts are -7 and 4. It'll tell us those values, or it'll give us in a point where the y value is 0. It's going to give us in one of those two, okay? So if it gives us the x-intercept, or two values, 2 points, where y is 0, we're talking about x-intercepts. If it gives us the vertex, we're talking about vertex form. Now, you're probably wondering at this point, why do we even need a point, correct? Because that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Well, let me give you all an illustration of this here. So this here is our coordinate plane. And let's say the vertex is at 1, 0. This here is the point 1, 0, yes? Well, this here is a quadratic with the vertex at 1, 0, yes? How about this one here? Well, yes, these are both have a vertex at 1, 0, yes? It's a little off, but move it over. This one here does too, doesn't it? We could also have this one here, or this one here. I mean, is there any restrictions on what this could be? Well, no. When we're just given the vertex, any one of these, or there are many, many more that could be true, because those all have that vertex. Now, yeah. Let's go back to this here. If they give us a vertex and a point, some point here, there's only going to be one parabola that will go through that point and have that vertex. Because as soon as we have a point, we've restricted what the equations can be. We've restricted what the equations can be. That's why we have a point. That's why we have the point. Now, again, the note sheets that y'all have a lot of stuff on them, yes? Or the note sheets, because these look like the note sheets we had Thursday, Friday, yes? Were those note sheets as bad as what they ended up being? Not too bad. And that's, again, why I have this. Now, what we will be doing, and what this is going to overall amount to, is plugging things in twice and simplifying. Plugging things in twice and simplifying. Well, 3 times, because we'll end up plugging the third value back in. But it's just going to be plugging, simplifying, plugging, simplifying. Now, question 1, first step, which type are we going to be using for this here? So what did they tell us? They told us what? The vertex is 3, 2, and it passes through the point 13, 8, yes? So looking at those two equations, which one's a vertex? Which one uses a vertex? Y equals, yes? So that's the equation we have. Circle that one. Because that's what we're going to be using. That's what we're going to be using. That's part 1. We're just going to circle that. I'm going to write it down. 2, what are the variables that we're using in the general equation? Well, we have A, H, and K, yes? X and Y we don't really count as variables. They are variables, but they're standard. They're going to be there. What we're identifying is what variables are in the given expression, what numbers or what variables will have a number put in for them. X and Y, X is input, Y is output. When we're done, we'll have Y equal something in terms of X, yes? X is still going to be there at the end. The variables that won't be are A, H, and K. Those we're going to replace with a number. Those are the ones we want to focus on. So that's 2. 3. Do we know the values of the variables, and what are they? Well, I know the value of H, because the vertex is H, comma, K, yes? Well, what's the value of H? 3. What's the value of K? 2. These are the only two we know, correct? Because those are the only two values that we know. We do not know the value of A, yes? 13, comma 8 is going to give us A, but those aren't A. It could work out that one of the numbers could be A. It could work out that in that one rare case that it is one of those values. But most likely, we're not going to just grab a value of A from 13, comma 8. So let's plug in what we know. So this is kind of step 4. I don't know what A is, but I know H is 3 and K is 2, yes? Because that's what it told us. The vertex told us H and K. Now it says it passes through this point, yes? So if I knew all the variables, if I know what the value of A is, and I plug 13 in for X, the value that will come out of this function is what? 8, because 13, 8 is a point on the graph, yes? So if I plug 13 in for X, 8 will come out for Y, yes? That's how we're going to find A. Because for this to work, what it's telling me is if I plug 13 in for X, I will get 8 for Y, because it's a point on the graph. So plugging that number in, how many variables do I have left? 1, I just have A, yes? We're going to solve for A. Once we get A, we plug it back in, and we're done. That's it. That's all we're doing here. So looking at this here, what's 13 minus 3? 10. Thirteen minus 3 is 10. What is 10 squared? 100. Then what do we do next? It should be 2. What would we do next? Subtract 2. Eight minus 2 is? What's next? We would divide by both sides by 100. When I divide both sides by 100, I get A is equal to 6 over 100, or 3 over 50. Because it'll simplify. 6 over 100 will simplify to 3 over 50. This is what we started with. So before we move on to this next part, are there any questions on how we found A? Any questions on how we found the value of A? Questions? Any questions on how we found the value of A? I'll get back in. So our first main step was figuring out that we're using vertex form. Y equals A times X minus H squared plus K. We picked that formula. Plugged in H and K from the vertex. Plugged in the point to find the value of A. Simplified, and then plugged it back in. That's it. That's all we're doing for this year. We're just finding this equation. Questions on this here? Any questions on this here? All right. Let's look at another example. So when we look at this here, when we look at this example here, the first thing we need to do is figure out which equation does it match up with. Well, what does it tell us? It tells us the vertex is -5, 9. It passes through this point. So since it gave us the vertex, we are saying y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. That's our equation. Because it gave us the vertex, we're using this form. Yes, sir. If it gives us the intercepts. So I think that's number 3 or 4. We'll see that show up. And when we look at the intercepts, it's not going to be too different. I mean, there will be a few things, slight differences. But the overall process that we're doing is going to be the same. So when we look at this here, what's our h and what's our k? What comes from the vertex? H would be -5 and k would be 9, because the vertex tells us the vertex is h comma k. The vertex here is -5 comma 9. So h is -5, k is 9. We plug them in. So we're on to step 4. So y equals a times x minus -5 squared plus 9. Well, we don't really leave a negative. We just rewrite it as plus. We rewrite it as positive. So we have x plus 5. So we identified h and k, and we plugged them in. Yes? Now what do we need to find? We need to find the value of a. Now the way we can find the value of a is by taking our point -7, -15 and plugging it in for x and y respectively. So y would be -15. X would be -7. And we have this here. So we take those two values and plug them in. We plug them in. Any questions on how we got to this point here? Now, we can simplify. -7 plus 5, which is -2. And -2 squared, -2 times -2 would be 4, yes? Now, if you wanted to, you could have typed in the calculator parentheses -7 plus 5, close parentheses squared, hit enter, and it would have told you it was 4. Because when we square it, we multiply it by itself. So -2 times -2, a negative and negative would give us a positive. Anytime we have a number squared, like the term squared, it should come out to be positive. The only way that would come out to be negative is if a, whatever's multiplied in front of it, was negative. Would be the only way that would work out. Does that make sense? Now, what do we do next? We would subtract 9. Do not combine 4a and 9. They are not like terms. 4a and 9 are not like terms. -15 minus 9 would be -24. And if you're not comfortable with doing those, the 24 minus 9, -24 minus 9, type it in a calculator. There's nothing wrong with typing them in a calculator and checking your answer. Last step would be to divide both sides by 4. A is negative. And last but not least, we've got to plug it back in. You have to plug it back in. So negative 6 times x plus 5 squared plus 9. Any questions on any of this here so far? Any questions on any of this here so far? We getting this here pretty well? Because for the most part, we're doing what? We're taking the vertex, plugging the vertex in. And it leaves us with just A. A is the only variable we don't have. We take the point, plug it in, solve for the value of A, and then plug A back in. And we're done. Questions on this here? Example 3. So this one here, we're not using vertex form anymore. Why not? So it tells us x-intercepts are negative 7 and negative 3. So circle the other equation. Because the other equation is y is equal to a times x minus p times x minus q. So we need p and q. We need to figure out which one's p, which one's q. It doesn't really matter. I can say p and q, or we can say q and p. We just picked one as p, we pick one as q. Because any two things multiplied together, order doesn't matter. So it'll just flip them. It'll just flip them if I chose the other order. So we have those 2 points. Now plug them in. Because y would equal a times x minus, I chose p as negative 7. So it'd be minus negative 7. So I've kind of skipped around on that one there with the numbers. Yes, a little bit, yes. Because really we're saying p is negative 7, q is negative 3. And I kind of jumped to 4. Yeah, this is example 3. I kind of jumped around on that one there. So p would be negative 7 and q is negative 3. Because really we could have also said that q is negative 7 and p is negative 3. It doesn't matter which one, because they'll still be kind of this here. Because when we simplify, it'd be this, or no matter how I write them, they mean the same thing, two things multiplied together. And a negative will make a positive. So I kind of jumped around on that one there with the note sheet, but I feel like most of that's making sense, yes? Because we just picked P and Q, plugged them in. So this here is very similar to vertex, yes? Except it's written different. We're still picking the numbers that we have and plugging them in for those variables, P and Q. Now we still need to find the value of A, yes? Well, how did we do it for vertex form? We took the point and plugged it in for X and Y, yes? We're going to do the same thing here. So the Y value is 0.05. X was negative 2. So even though there's two X values, I plug them in both. Anywhere there's an X, I plug it in. So since here X appears twice, I plug it in twice. So we're plugging in 0.05 for Y and plugging in negative 2 in both of the X's. Plugging in negative 2 for both of the X's. So we get 0.05 equals A times negative 2 plus 7 times negative 2 plus 3. We get this here. Questions on this here? Any questions on any of this here so far? Now we can simplify. Now for some of you, if you're wondering, can I type this whole thing here into the calculator? Yes, that's perfectly fine. If we write it out, negative 2 plus 7 is 5. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. So I can write those out. We can simplify those down. And then I can do 5 times 1, which is just 5a. So if you typed in a calculator, parentheses, negative 2 plus 7, close parentheses, open parentheses, negative 2 plus 3, close parentheses, hit enter, it would have told you it was 5. So you could type this in just as it is, and the calculator will tell you it's 5.
Do everything inside the parentheses before you do the a, right? So if that was, say it was 5 and 2, it would be 10a instead of 5.
Yep. Yeah, or we can do 5 times a, which would be 5a times 2 if we had to, and it would be 10.
Okay.
Order doesn't matter on multiplication if we have multiple things multiplied. We can do them in any order. Now, last but not least, what do we need to do? Divide both sides by 5. Well, the 5 and 5 will simplify. I'm not expecting you to do 0.05 divided by 5 in your head. But it works out to be 0.01. So you can do that in a calculator. If you do it in a calculator, 0.05 divided by 5 should give you 0.01. So this is the equation we were looking at to find the value of a. And we found it, didn't we? 0.01. That's it. And that's it. So we did this almost the same thing. We did something very similar to what we did on the first one, didn't we? Or with the vertex form. Instead of plugging in h and k, we plugged in p and q. Got our equation. Plugged in the point, found the value of a, and plugged it back in. That's it. That's all we're doing for this here. Any questions on this here? We good with this here? All right, let's look at one last one. And then I will give you the rest of the time to work on the homework. Give you the rest of the time to work on the homework. Now this here didn't tell us what these 2 points are, but they both have a y value of 0, yes? Because they have a y value of 0, it means these 2 points are x-intercepts. If they have a y value of 0, it's an x-intercept. It's an x-intercept. So that means our p and q are these here. And we're working with a times x minus p times x minus q. That's our equation. So that's the one with circle. Y equals a times x minus p times x minus q. And our variables are a, p, and q. And we can say the value of p is negative 16 and the value of q is negative 2. Or you could flip it. It doesn't matter which. Because if you want to set q as negative 16 and p as negative 2, that works just fine. Plug them in. Times x minus negative 16 times x minus negative 2. Now, so far, I believe most of these have worked out to be plus and plus. Yes, this one and the last one worked out to be plus and plus. It's not always going to be that way. It just worked out that way because p and q are both negative. If p and q were both positive, it would be x minus and x minus. It only worked out that they're both positive because the value of p and q are both negative. Now we need to find the value of a, yes? So we're going to plug in 72 and negative 18. 72 is y. X is negative 18. X is negative 18. And we're plugging in that point. So with this here, we plug x in twice because x appears twice. X appears twice. Now, if you wanted to type this whole thing in, go for it. It'll give you the answer. The calculator will tell you what it is. Or if we do it by hand, negative 18 plus 16 is negative 2. Negative 18 plus 12 is negative 16. Well, a negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 16 is? Now what do we do next? Divide both sides by 32. Well, 72 over 32 divide evenly. No. If it had been 31, it would have been 2. That works evenly. Now, you could do this in a calculator, in the graphing calculator or yellow calculator. We'll simplify 72 over 32 easily. It'll do it once. 36 over 16, because I pulled a factor or 2 out. I can do it again. 8 and 18, well, 9 over 4. So the calculator, the graphing calculator, if you do alpha y equals enter, 72 over 32 and hit enter, it'll reduce it to 9/4. The TI-30XS, the yellow ones, 72 over 32, hit enter, it'll reduce it to 9/4. I did it by 2s because it was easier to do that by hand to get there. You don't have to do it that way. So I looked at this here. Well, 72 is 2 times 36, and 32 is 2 times 16. So those cancel. 36, I could say, is 2 times 18. 16 is 2 times 8. Those cancel. 18 is 2 times 9, and 8 is 2 times 4, because I see there's a common factor of 2. But 9 and 4 don't have any more factors. They're not even, so they don't have a factor of 2. So I'm done. But that's it. The calculator will do that just as easily. And that's why I say plug it in there, because at this point, knowing that is helpful. It helps you simplify fractions faster, but the calculator will do it faster than you can by hand. So why not utilize it? So y is equal to a times x plus, what was it, 18? Not 18, 16. Last thing in the number we plugged in. Times x plus 2. And we found that value of a is 9/4. And that's it. Now, if it comes out to be an improper fraction, just leave it as an improper fraction, because it'll define it better, because one of the ones on the homework gives you a repeating decimal. So if it was, you did it, found the value of a is 0.33333 repeating just constantly, leave it as 1/3, leave it as a fraction. If it comes out to be a nice decimal like 0.25 or 0.5, write it as a decimal. But don't write a repeating number as a, if it's a repeating number like 1/3, write it as a fraction. If it does terminate, it does end nicely, you can write it as a decimal. There's nothing wrong with that. Any questions on any of these here? And that's the end of chapter 2.